Hi everybody, my name is Jim Gresham and welcome to Sullivan's Island, this auspicious location, Fort Moultrie. Sullivan's Island, South Carolina is a barrier island that sits just about 4 miles from the center of peninsular Charleston, and Sullivan's Island is a location that was actually established as a fortification from the time it was incepted in 1674. So this has the designation of being the longest contiguously operating seaborne fortification in the Americas. So we find that here on Sullivan's Island, it is a gateway to Charleston's harbor. On the north side of Charleston's harbor is where we are standing. On the south side is another barrier island. It's known as Morris Island, and this forms the mouth of Charleston Harbor. More than $26 billion a year of seaborne commerce passes through the port of Charleston on an annual basis and is the lifeblood for the economy for the state of South Carolina and neighboring states as well. Well, back to why we are here. This location represents probably one of the most significant naval battles to take place during the American Revolution. During the American Revolution, a lot of people aren't aware that over 200 engagements were seen here in the state of South Carolina. It was probably one of the locations in America where we find more activity during the Revolutionary War than any other location. And a lot of people just simply aren't aware of it. It represented a turning point as well towards the victory over the British. Now, we also find that this location happened to be an engagement in June 28th of 1776. The British came and tried to take Charleston by the sea. They tried to take Charleston by the sea with a fleet of 20 warships with 9 ships of the line. I've got to back up just a little bit to explain what happened previously. We found that South Carolina was one of the first states to actually break away from Mother England. We actually seceded on March 24th of 1775. If you think about it as well, we seceded again on December the 20th of 1860. So it seems like it's a part of our DNA to break away from any kind of authority figures. But found ourselves with a leader here in the colony, a gentleman by the name of John Rutledge, who became the president of South Carolina. Well, he formed an organization that was called the Security Council, and the Security Council wanted to see Mother England kicked out. And so we found that the royal governor, was expelled for his own safety. He had to leave. He took off, went to New York, and we kind of knew that he was going to come back, and they came back in spades, in force. We found that in early June of 1776, this flotilla arrived to our shores, and it was a long and drawn-out process from the beginning. The British Navy was doing some surveying. They were trying to figure out exactly what was going on here on the island. About 6 months before, the fortification was begun construction, and it wasn't complete. Only about 50% of the fort had been constructed by the time June 28th of 1776 rolled around. About 3,000 Royal regulars arrived on the island that's to the north of us, Long Island, today's Isle of Palms. They were going to attack the island from the north. There was another force that was going to take the island from the north. They were going to come in and flank the island, and then of course this bombardment by the sea. The problem that we had was that the commander at the time, a gentleman by the name of Moultrie, found himself in a difficult position. He had about 400 amateur soldiers at his disposal, and these soldiers were trained in infantry and they weren't trained in artillery. And here this British fleet was showing up. They had 28 cannons. Each cannon had a store of ammunition that consisted of 28 shots. And here the Royal Navy was showing up with 280 cannon and unlimited supplies. Well, on the day of the battle, we found that Colonel Moultrie had an ingenious plan. He told his men not to shoot. He told his men to reserve their fire, to hold the fire until the flagship of the fleet, the HMS Bristol, made a pass by the fort. The HMS Bristol made its pass by the fort and it expended its guns, and to the surprise of the Patriots, those those cannonballs were absorbed into the fort, or they bounced off the soft and fibrous nature of the materials that constructed the fort. You can notice these beautiful trees behind me. These are known as sable palmettos, and this is how the fort was constructed. The fort was constructed with a sandwich approach. On the exterior of the fort, there was these palmetto logs lined up. In the center, there was sand, and in the interior of the fort, there were also a series of palmetto logs. Well, the soft and fibrous nature of these palmetto logs allowed those British cannon shots to be absorbed into or bounced off. And once that HMS Bristol expended its cannon, we found that Colonel Moultrie told his men to unload onto the flagship of the fleet. But he didn't tell his men to shoot at the mast and the riggings. He didn't tell his men to shoot at the gun decks. He told his men to fire at the quarterdeck, where all of the officers in command were standing. And this withering and accurate gunfire not only mortally wounded its commander, Sir Admiral Peter Parker, but it also killed all of the officers on the deck. Of the command ship, we found that the rest of the ships in the fleet found themselves running aground on sandbars. They found themselves without a battle plan, and from there they became sitting ducks. In the end of the day, when the smoke cleared, 6 out of the 9 ships lay in disarray, run aground, out of the fight, and not able to return. And so this, a remarkable day and a remarkable event that took place on June 28th of 1776. From here on, we regarded this day as Carolina Day. And we find that on Carolina Day every year, the church bells ring, men put on their Sunday best, ladies don hats and flowing dresses, flags are carried, music is scored, and we find that parades take place all throughout the city to church bells ringing and cannon fire. It's an absolutely amazing day that's coming up, and if you have a chance to visit Charleston, South Carolina, and your vacation plans take you over the course of Carolina Day, please take advantage of some of these remarkable events that we see. We find that this day, June 28th, 1776, was only a week prior to those men meeting in Philadelphia to put pen to paper, to sign their names on the dotted line to create the Declaration of Independence. Unfortunately, news of this victory did not arrive Philadelphia until July the 13th of 1776. But I can only imagine, I sit back and I like to think that that courier came in with the dispatch from the front, and it happened on July the 3rd of 1776, and it was just a rousing opportunity for all of those founding fathers to gather behind this victory and celebrate. But what an amazing time that we experienced. The British, they ended up turning tail, departing. Didn't return until 1780. This actually bought us time, about 4 years prior to the British return, when unfortunately they did besiege and attack Charleston, taking it over for a period of approximately 24 months. But what an amazing epic in time. Charleston today, as I mentioned, is a major seaport. Well, yesterday it was as well, and had fallen to the British, it would have turned a dramatic course in the duration of the American Revolution. Well, that's about all I have. That really represents what this location is all about. Unfortunately, I don't see any beautiful flags flying that would actually give us a good representation as to how our South Carolina flag was derived. If you've ever seen a South Carolina flag, you've likely have noticed the beautiful sable palmetto that stands in the center. It's located on our flag for the strength and resilience that this palmetto log fort was made of. And they also notice another little object on our South Carolina flag. It has a little crescent, and sometimes this crescent that we see has a bit of a mystery associated with it. Some folks say that the crescent was derived from the coat of arms from Colonel William Moultrie. Others say that he's just simply described it in his notes as being a crescent located in the canton of the flag. So we really aren't sure exactly what it's derived from. We know that in the days following the medieval times, when knights in armor went on horseback into battle, they had a device that they wore around their neck, a device that was made of iron that was called a gorget. And the gorget, kind of in a crescent shape, protected that knight against sword strikes. Well, after gunpowder was developed and the use of armor was made obsolete, this gorget was reduced to a breastplate. And very often we find that in Napoleonic soldiers wearing this fancy uniforms with their piece of metal on their chest as a breastplate, that too is a gorget. Sometimes it designates an officer, sometimes it designates the unit that the soldier was associated with. Here, our patriots had a cap device with the words liberty or death inscribed. It was in the shape of a crescent, the shape of a gorget, and so likely that has an attribution as to how it found its way on our flag. Notice the flag itself is a field of blue, and the field of blue represents that blue color that our patriot soldiers wore. So if you have a chance to check out a South Carolina flag, it certainly is simple in its design, but absolutely beautiful in its representation, and it all comes from this location. Just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, we might see one at one of the stops around the fort.
Do you want to take?
Great. Oh, should we come over and say hi real quick?
Sure.
No, sorry.
So I didn't want to interrupt.
Oh, no problem.
I've been dancing to stay out of the shot.
Really appreciate that.
Hopefully we're trying to do everything in one shot, like one of those deals. So I just wanted to touch base with you, and this is how I like doing things, so we can save each other a bunch of work.
Totally.
But the park does have special regulations when it comes to tour groups, and I kind of touched on this, but I wanted to check with the folks inside who are responsible for that before I gave you any sort of real information on it. If you reach out to me at the card I gave you,
yes, sir,
I can put you in contact with the right person with more information.
Awesome.
But just like any park, any sort of commercial business, like we'll work with this is fine. But as far as like bringing tour groups in,
clear it with them first.
Basically, yeah.
Absolutely.
That makes sense.
It might be a permitting process. It might be, well, you can do this, but you can't do that. Specifically with the kind of Civil War sites around here, there is a little extra regulation of like, we want the kind of approved information shared and everybody's information. Like if I wanted to do a talk on anything out here, it has to be approved and make sure it's like historically accurate.
That makes so much sense.
So,
and that because history, so much of history can be changed depending upon what you say, what you leave out. And you change the perspective on it. So I think that makes a lot of sense.
So we're very cautious about this kind of stuff. So potentially, if you were doing, just to kind of give you a little scoop, if you were doing a walking tour of Sullivan's Island and did all sorts of Sullivan's Island stuff, potentially you could give a whole bunch of kind of guidance information before you get to the park site. And when you get to the park site, people just go and do their thing. And maybe you answer a question here if they come to you and ask you. But as far as like doing a kind of interpretive tour, kind of in the
that's your job.
That's not my job, but it's,
that's why we've got the best.
Yeah.
So there is that kind of delicate balance, and if I can keep me from writing somebody else a ticket, I talk to those folks to be like, all right, let's take care of that.
Definitely. We don't want any tickets.
Beautiful.
No, and we're historian people. We're in it to share history, and trust me, if we were in it for the money, we wouldn't be doing this job. That's for sure.
There's other areas with a whole lot more money for me too.
Definitely, we'd be out of carriage right now.
So I was doing my best not to get in the shot or anything like that. But
appreciate it.
But before you actually come out and do any of the tours that you're kind of working on right now, make sure you talk to the park.
Absolutely.
And I can put you in contact with the right people, because if this is the last time that we talk, other than hey, it's nice to see you again, that makes my day.
Beautiful. Well, I think we're all on the same page.
Good,
yeah,
good.
Thank you for that, and really thank you also for being a park ranger.
Oh.
Like I don't have it on me, but I have my annual card, You know, I always
Nice.
get one,
Nice.
and I tend to go, like, especially in Vegas, I go out to like Red Rocks and Circle of Fire, and that's what
Awesome,
first
yeah.
got me into
Yeah.
making sure that I have my annual pass.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. I didn't realize it, but I was in Atlanta recently doing a live stream, and the whole Castleberry Hill district is a national park inside of the city of Atlanta, and I just think it's awesome what you guys do, and I'm very, very grateful for your the whole organization, the whole thing, and like. Next time they're going to furlough people, it better not be you guys, as far as I'm concerned.
Well,
you know what I mean?
If you're working with a Batman utility belt, you're working not getting paid until you get paid. So it is what it is.
That's it.
It's working for the government. It was supposed to be a secure future, right?
Yeah. You know, it's all, yeah, it's complicated. It's a complicated situation. That's my status.
Yeah. So definitely, if you have any questions, I'd love to answer them now. Otherwise, I got about 15 other places I got to be.
I hear you, Ranger Alex.
Get out of your way. And we'll
Thank you very much, sir.
Explore in that direction.
Cool. Thank you,
you
guys.
very much. Appreciate it. Just hold on one second.
Uh-huh.
Sorry, guys.
Hey, everybody.
I didn't want to tell them that we were live the entire time.
We're getting
I
narked
felt
on.
I felt like it was probably better for us not to mention to the gentleman with the sidearm. It was a really nice way to say handcuffs, taser, mace.
Take both of us down in a skinny minute.
Yeah. Don't be surprised if we cut that part out of the video as well.
That was probably a good idea.
I think it's probably wise to get that out.
I
But,
think Ranger Alex probably doesn't want to see himself on YouTube. His boss doesn't want to see him on YouTube.
Yeah, Jeanette, sorry, I can see you're saying it's pretty quiet. I didn't want to ask the ranger with the gun to step closer to the mic. I thought that was going to give away that we were actually still streaming. And thank you for understanding that and being patient, guys. And it probably will.
I'm glad there wasn't that big honking.
Oh yeah, the red light's a giveaway.
Right.
Well, here we are. Back to Jim.
Hello. Okay. So as you can see behind me here, the fort has taken on several different incarnations during its time. Sullivan's Island, interestingly enough, gets its name from an Irishman. His name was Florence O'Sullivan. He was a native of County Cork, served as a sergeant in the Army, and found himself on the first ship that landed here in the Carolina colony in Charlestown in 1670. And apparently, Mr. Sullivan had a rather interesting way about him. He was brought on board to be an assemblyman, and he was brought on board to be an official surveyor. But apparently, he had some opinions that rubbed people the wrong way. He had his own way of doing things. And in 1674, he was either expelled from the colony or he left on his own volition. And so he made his way out here to Sullivan's Island. Of course, 4 miles inland where peninsular Charleston is located, it's difficult. Ships coming into Charleston Harbor. Your line of sight on flat land is about 5 miles, and so by him being positioned out here on the island, he would be able to see masts and sails and give something of a forewarning to the colonists within the city. He had a cannon. The cannon had some rounds associated with it, and fire the cannon on a minute interval basis should any enemies appear on the horizon. So that was his job, and apparently he liked it out here an awful lot. He was here for about 10 years until his death in 1687. But I guess a loner, you could say he was an outdoorsman, a woodsman, but certainly, beachfront property here is pretty expensive today on Sullivan's Island. So I have a feeling that he was one of those guys that saw it before. Oh, there's a beautiful hawk up there. Do you notice him?
Oh wow!
Doing a little preening. Hopefully he can get himself some dinner, a little field mouse or something like that. I love seeing birds of prey here in this area. We have some peregrine falcons. We have a beautiful type of a diminutive hawk here locally that's known as a Cooper's hawk. And you see the Cooper's hawk flying at altitude, and they have a very distinctive triangular tail. And in order to move itself in flight, all he has to do is articulate that tail just a little bit, and all of a sudden the bird is on the move. It is absolutely a beautiful sight to see.
Yeah.
Oh,
Very cool.
oh,
Good
amazing.
eyes. Good spotting.
Sure. So the fort was originally this half-completed fort in 1776. Was finally completed during that 4-year period of a respite, and then we found at the end of the Revolutionary War, things started to change a little bit. We had the War of 1812 on the horizon. We're worried about the British doing a War Part 2, and so they reinforced this area again. Again, reinforced prior to the Spanish-American War, and again into the preparations for World War I. During World War I, approximately 5,000 U.S. soldiers were stationed out here, and then during World War II, this location became a coastal defense battery, and we can see all the evidence of that World War II effect in place. Saw a little bit of action in September of 1942 when a German U-boat mined the shipping channel just offshore. They started to place submarine nets, and then they got really serious about ramping up the defenses here in town. We found there's some rumors floating. Become today old wives' tales, but there's usually a kernel of truth within these rumors. You talk to some old Charlestonians who lived through World War II, and they tell some descriptions about some blonde-haired, blue-eyed gentlemen who arrived in town here on Sullivan's Island, showed up to a grocery store asking for some milk and bread and eggs, and then had a wet hair and a bit of a wet jacket, and then disappeared as soon as they came. Allegedly, there was a U-boat that was hit with some of these depth charges, and bag from a local grocer showed up. But again, you know, that could have come off of the minesweeper as well.
Hey Jim, Alexa, who's a bit of a birder, says that she thinks it might be an osprey. That it's like
He does look like an osprey, yeah.
Fisher's eagle, the Pandian haliatus. I mean, that seems when someone breaks out the Latin term for the bird, I'm going to say they probably.
Did you get a good zoom in? I'm not wearing my glasses. So
Oh yeah.
he does have those white legs.
Here, take a. I don't know. I don't know if you can see it on the camera here. That's as zoomed as I can
I
get.
think it's just about 1-to-1 right there.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, you're right. It's true.
Oh, that's funny. We had a, it was interesting, we had an osprey nest in the vicinity of our house, and last spring we had these little juvenile ospreys who were learning how to fly, and every once in a while we would find a fish on our back deck, Spanish mackerel, a bluefish or something like that, just sitting there. Well, how the heck did this fish find its way onto our back deck? And look up, and there's the juvenile osprey pecking at his lunch. And,
Amazing.
And I guess he couldn't hold on to it.
We're doing a tour in Kyoto, the bamboo forest.
Oh, beautiful.
On Sunday morning Kyoto, Saturday night North America. And the guide, Shohei, was telling me that we might see one of the traditional fishermen there who would use birds to hunt fish. The fish gets stuck in their throat, and then the fish return to the fishermen so they can retract the bird, and that's how they fish.
Was that the anhinga or maybe the cormorant?
He couldn't tell me the name, but he promised he was going to get it for me. But
How amazing.
Fascinating story. Yeah.
You know, there's this symbiotic relationship between man and nature.
Yeah, exactly.
But just a beautiful scene. This is a spring break here in South Carolina, and we're finding that a lot of folks have had this pent-up demand to get out of town and get their travel on, and we find that a beach is a lovely place to spend some time where you can socially distance, and as long as you take good precautions. One of these barrier islands here, Sullivan's Island, as well as its neighbor to the north, Isle of Palms, extremely popular. I happen to live on a beach community called Folly Beach to the south of us, and apparently traffic was backed up about 5 miles today in order to get onto the island itself.
Jim, as I was walking around here the other day, I noticed that it looked like there were doors that have been bricked up in the fort wall in different places.
It doesn't seem like a surprise. A lot of modifications have been made to the fort during time. We found that there were other fortifications located all along this area. Today, some of those fortifications have been repurposed to make the Sullivan's Island Elementary School, and we've also found some private residences being rehabbed out of these various old coastal fortifications and defenses.
I went to Magnolia Cemetery and visited the final resting place of the crews of the Hunley.
The CSS Hunley represents the very first occasion upon which a submarine was used to sink a ship during wartime. Not a traditional submarine by today's standards. We found that rather than firing torpedoes from its bow, it actually had a long spar that contained a package of gunpowder. The idea was you would attach this package of gunpowder to the side of a ship, pull the lanyard once you were retreating, and all of a sudden it would explode, obviously resulting in the sinking of the ship. And so the CSS Hunley had a designation of being something of a widowmaker. During its very first sea trial, it sank at the dock, killing all of its crewmen. Went through phase 2 of testing, and again, that is the same result. When she went out to take on the USS Housatonic, a blockading vessel of the Union fleet, just about 4 miles off of our coast, we found that it never returned from that voyage. Some speculation as to what actually caused the sinking of the Hunley. Some folks say that there perhaps was a bullet fired into the conning tower. It damaged the lamp and damaged the porthole and was caused water to flow in. A more logical explanation tends to be from research that's been recently conducted. They were doing some work they've retrieved the Hunley, and they were doing some work on the inside of the vessel, and they found that the pumps experienced some difficulty during that attack. And so potentially the pumps failed and therefore the submarine sank. But I can't imagine what a way to go that.
What's your preference?
Let's go see some guns, I guess.
Yeah?
Son of a
See
gun.
some guns?
Son of a gun.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well, we could ask them, let them choose.
Well, right. We found actually a good friend of mine, a gentleman by the name of Harry Pecorelli, was a diver with the South Carolina Underwater Historical Society, and he, in a expedition with the novelist Clive Cussler, were the first people to actually put their hands on the Hunley in 1999. It was successfully raised in the year 2000, and today it sits in a conservancy in North Charleston and is going to be refurbished and brought back to life for display. Pretty fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
Harry today is taking some time off with his family, and he's sailing in the Caribbean. So Harry's watching. Hey. Cheers.
Nice, good place to be. Don't tell Shannon though. She doesn't like to hear other people are in the Caribbean right now. That's where she's supposed to be right now.
Oh no, Turks and Caicos, Shannon.
I think she's like she's a San Martin kind of lady.
Hey, that's a fancy pants place.
Well, it's not same parts, but.
Various evolution of cannon that we see here. This guy is called a mortar, and you can tell that it's a rather formidable piece of gear. Mortars were essentially a short-range piece of gear. Would fire a very large ball that would cause an awful lot of destruction upon its impact. Sometimes we found that these cannonballs were hollow, loaded up with gunpowder, and then a fuse would ignite as the cannonball was fired, and it would time itself so that upon landing would explode and detonate and cause even more mayhem. As a part of the attack here on June 28th of 1776, there was a British warship called the HMS Thunder, and the HMS Thunder had one of these significant mortars located on it, and in a stroke of luck for the Patriot soldiers, on the second round that the HMS thunder, offering some devastating fire onto the fort that was already only half constructed. So what a stroke of luck that was experienced by our Patriot forces.
Suzanne writes, mayhem.
Mayhem, yes. So we have these larger guns. These are what would be known as a Columbiad. Usually weigh somewhere between 25 and 35,000 pounds. We found that this is a smoothbore gun, and we found that with the development of rifling the cannons, the projectiles became even more formidable. The smoothbore gun just simply fired a round ball. When you had the rifling taking place, you could actually fire a pointy round, and that would cause even more destruction and damage. Once these, and there's one on display right here, and once these rifled guns started to show themselves, it basically made these coastal defenses, these coastal forts made out of brick and earthwork, essentially rendered these obsolete. So it was a game changer in terms of coastal defense, and all of a sudden we found that these fortifications that we see lining our coast were something that were just rendered unusable any longer.
And that weapon that was on top, is that a howitzer? Kind of?
So that gun is, what's a good word for something that hides itself?
Like camouflage? Or
No. It's a, what's
retractable?
It's a retractable gun, but it would fire and then it would be able to be hidden out of sight. It was on a pivot, and you would find it. What is the name for that? It's a specific name. These modern things. I'm more of a 17th, 18th century guy, and these. Oh my gosh! S, it begins with an S.
A chameleon.
No.
Jeanette says it's a good guess.
Well, I know this is a great. It's a great Scrabble word, I imagine.
If my cousin Chris is stationed in Pearl Harbor in the Navy.
Yeah.
If he's watching, Chris, if you're watching, I know he's preparing his exam for his E6 right now.
Holy cow!
So I guess he's probably not watching.
Get him, Chief.
But if there are any other military weapon experts or history people, then
okay.
Anyway, it'll come to you.
It likely will.
3 minutes after
probably
we're done.
Probably when I'm taking a shower. But yeah, so it retracts, was able to make itself hidden from any big fire, and then be loaded, and then show itself again.
Smart.
To do its thing.
Yeah. I guess if you have a stationary weapon, people can find you. So it's good to be able to retract and hide.
Now my mind is filled.
Sorry.
You're fine. If anybody has any other specific questions about this part of the world, anywhere where we're standing, could be about, lifestyle, cuisine, the nature of the topography and geography. I'm all game. But
I haven't been reading you any of the comments, but they've been coming in fast and furious.
Okay, well, shout some out.
But guys, this is a good time for Q&A as you wish. So, lots of hellos. Michelle, hello. Colleen, hello. Lots of comments about the bird.
Yeah.
Figuring that out. Don't hesitate.
Well, folks, I think that we are getting towards a good logical conclusion, and I'm glad that you enjoyed your time with me this afternoon. I certainly enjoyed spending my time with you, and if you ever have the opportunity to visit Charleston, South Carolina, please look me up. I'd be happy to escort you around my adopted hometown and take you to beautiful places like Fort Moultrie here on Sullivan's Island.
Shannon asks how heavy the cannons might have been.
Oh,
if you have a sense.
Some of these big boys here, anywhere between 25 to 35,000 pounds of solid iron.
Wow.
There was a story of a house that was located on the tip of the peninsula in downtown Charleston, where at the end of the final,
we'll try walking around until we lose the signal.
Okay.
And if we make it all the way around the circle one time, then that's amazing. You know what I mean?
We'll see if we can do it.
See if we can
Why
do it.
not?
And we're about 35 minutes in to the tour part of the tour right now.
Perfect. So there was a order that was given by the Confederate commander here during the Civil War as the Union forces were approaching, that it would be a good idea to blow in order to prevent them from falling into the Union hands. And so they stuffed the barrels with gunpowder, fuse. I guess somebody said, "Hold my beer," and then all of a sudden, kablooey, the thing blew up. Well, there is, located in the rafters of a big, beautiful mansion called the de Saussure Mansion on downtown Charleston, a 500-pound chunk of iron that's still located up in the rafters. And I've always thought this was going to be one of these nice souvenirs that you could always show off during a cocktail party or maybe during a dinner party with your friends and neighbors visiting.
Nikki out of Edinburgh asks whether or not you knew that one of the founders of the U.S. Navy was a Scotsman.
Yes, Isaac Hopkins.
Whoa, if that's accurate, that's amazing.
I think it is. As a matter of fact, we had a gentleman here by the name of Christopher Gadsden, who was flag, the yellow flag with the coiled rattlesnake and the words "Don't tread on me." He petitioned Isaac Hopkins to use that flag for our United States Navy and the United States Marines.
So is this original stone here?
So this brickwork is likely, this brickwork is from one of the more modern variants of fortification.
Yeah.
So this is all sort of around that period in time from the Spanish-American War, World War I is what we're seeing here. Likely some repairs that were made.
Nikki says John Paul Jones, maybe?
Oh, Sir John Paul Jones, yes, he was the, well, he wasn't necessarily the father, he was the great commander who, as a matter of fact, was the first, one of the first to actually engage in any kind of action against the enemy. As a matter of fact, I think one of the first actions he took was over in Scotland. He went to his former hometown and decided to raid the naval stores where he began his career as a sailor.
Diana asks, were those cannons made in the colonies?
So yes, they were. So the cannons that we saw that were in that line of cannons, those would have been cannons that were manufactured here in the United States. We would have found that the South really didn't have an adequate supply of iron ore. There wasn't really any kind of a source of iron ore, and so there was a naval blockade in place to prevent any imports from coming in, and the South was forced to recycle, melt various gates and grates and church bells and any sort of ferrous material, melt it down in order to create these cannons and cannonballs and the like. During the course of the Civil War, they also found blockade runners. Probably familiar with a gentleman, a fictitious character by the name of Rhett Butler, right? He was Margaret Mitchell's creation of a famous blockade runner, and so Rhett Butler, fiction, was actually running the gauntlet of those federal blockades. And that's the point of that CSS Hunley. The CSS Hunley was in place in order to break the blockade by sinking the Housatonic and successfully sinking other warships. They would have an ability to come in and let those imports and exports move.
Fun fact, when I was rowing in college, we rowed on the Housatonic River in Connecticut.
Holy cow.
Go figure. You can really get a feeling of the fact that this fort is protecting the waterway here, because you can see the water so clearly, even on the camera when I zoom in right now. You really get that sense that it's overlooking, and that based on your description, I can almost bring myself back in time and imagine those ships of the line, those men of war out there.
Absolutely.
This fortress not yet completed with militia soldiers, and still able to drive off this far superior force in many ways. So.
One of the real challenges that is the lesson for the aftermath of this conflict that was seen on June 28th of 1776 was really the lack of intelligence and the sheer arrogance that the Royal Navy had coming into this location. They relied too far on other sources for their information. For example, they contracted a couple of local pilots like the back of their hands. But these pilots, they were, of course, were afraid that if word came out that they assisted the Royal Navy, they wouldn't have a life of their own. They would be persecuted by the Patriots. And so they only gave them half the information that they really needed. And so that was the result of some of the ships running aground. Mentioned that they had about 3,000 redcoats that were going to cross over from the Isle of Palms, yesterday known as Long Island. There is a body of water that separates the two barrier of islands that's known as Breach Inlet, and soundings were done on old charts, and the charts weren't necessarily updated and correct, and the British thought that they had a significant amount of depth in order to wade over and attack the eastern side of the island. Well, turns out it didn't work, and after they quickly realized that they couldn't cross on foot, they brought on several scows, several barges, in order to load these troops up. Well, there was Colonel Thompson had 3 cannon, about 150 men located on that eastern end of gun batteries, masked, camouflaged against the natural foliage. And as the scows with the troops were about halfway across Breach Inlet, of course he opened fire. Sharpshooters took out a number of these redcoats and then found themselves retiring without really putting up any kind of a fight. And so another element of the attack was thwarted based upon poor information.
It's funny because I was reading recently about how the redcoats were able to, or the British were able to then take Savannah. And it seems like, and I don't know, I'm not an expert at all in this, but that it was a freed enslaved person, a freed, African slave person, who then led them through the swamps to be able to approach from a different direction, and had the intelligence ultimately to lead them in and attack from an unexpected direction. I don't know if you know anything about that story.
So the idea being is that General Oglethorpe in Savannah, of course, knew that any kind of assault would come from either the sea, would come from the Savannah River, or it would come on land where there was a natural entry into the city. And nobody suspected that anyone would have the temerity. Very difficult terrain, especially with all kinds of weaponry and gear, cannon and horses, simply weren't able to cross that terrain. And unfortunately for Oglethorpe, that was something that he did not take into consideration, and was ultimately the weak link, and it was his Achilles heel essentially.
Can you ask if they're still getting the signal right now?
Yeah, are you actually are you seeing a test pattern, or is there something coming in there? We're actually transmitting because we're at the kind of like the dark side of the moon here.
Yeah.
We're on the poor side for reception, and we're not.
I'd be amazed if we're still connected actually right now. Maybe that's why no one's writing anything, is because we've lost the feed. I'm not sure.
I hope not. Maybe the people are just enthralled with the conversation.
That's definitely the case. Oh wait, Shannon says it's pretty good.
Oh wait. Thank you, Diana. Now, during the course of the Civil War, about 100 years after the conflict that we were talking about here, the fort was a Union fortification initially. The commander of the Union forces, a gentleman, decided things were getting a little too hot here in Charleston, and it was unfortunately not able to sustain a presence here at Fort Moultrie. And so he decided to take his 86 men across the waterway and onto the island fort of Fort Sumter. And we might be able to walk over by this car park and see that island fort.
Well, we can end up over there, if that makes sense for you.
Let's go to the beach.
Yeah? We'll definitely. It'll lag every once in a while, so.
Okay. Will trees cause us problems, or is it hard objects?
It's just that it's not. It's people preferring their backyards over cell phone towers.
Aha. I can understand that.
Yeah. I mean, maybe now's a good time just to say goodbye, just in case.
Okay.
Although we won't actually end until we get out there.
Sounds like a plan to me,
Yeah,
Chris.
does that make sense?
Sure, most definitely. Well, everybody, thank you very much for joining me. This has certainly been a lot of fun to take a field trip. I'd love to see other parts of the historical offerings that we have here in this beautiful city of 351 years. Wow, that's a lot of time for us, and at least for a young city in America, that certainly is a presence that a lot of other cities don't have. And so thank you for taking this virtual tour, and I certainly enjoy you being with me today.
Awesome.
Enjoy.
Awesome. All right, so we'll all right, so guys, we're gonna try to do Fort Sumter real quick, but if we lose you, you know what happened, okay?
We'll
It's
see.
just because we're going to the beach and there's not the greatest signal, but
We'll see
we'll
what
give
happens.
it a go. And we're now at 47 minutes, so
That's
it's
pretty
perfect,
good.
Yeah. Oh wow, it really is close.
It's 1 mile away.
Oh my goodness.
And so the island fort of Fort Sumter there was built on a sandbar that was known as middle ground. And the sandbar was simply something that would expose itself at low tide. Took a fair amount of time to construct the fort. Construction began in 1838. Really wasn't completed when the war actually broke out in 1861. It was only about 90% complete. The idea during the Civil War for a coastal defense that the Union forces had established was that these two fortifications would operate in tandem. They would operate together, providing Fort Moultrie with the fire going towards the channel, with Sullivan's Island providing its return fire towards the channel, and this center of the main shipping channel would have become the zone of death. Influence of the conflicting fire would have disabled any kind of attacking vessels.
Which we're heading ultimately in that direction down to that city we see in the distance, right?
Absolutely. The church steeples punctuating the skyline of downtown historic Charleston. We find that today almost as many construction cranes are on the horizon as we have those beautiful church steeples. Interesting fact about Charleston is that we have a rule and ordinance here in the city that says that no building can be taller than the tallest church steeple. The tallest church steeple happens to have a height of 265 feet, and ultimately no building can be taller than 265.
Shannon asks, is that the, sorry, I was blocking your mic for a second from the wind. Shannon asks, is that the ocean or the intercoastal waterway here?
Oh, so this is the Atlantic Ocean. So we are looking at the threshold of the Atlantic. When we take a look at the tip of our Sullivan's Island that we're standing on, look across the waterway, that's another barrier island that's known as Morris Island. And basically, if you go any to the left, you're going to be in the Atlantic Ocean. To the right, Charleston Harbor, which was originally described as a fine saltwater bay.
Great, well they're still here. We managed to still have a connection down here,
It's
which
pretty
is
cool.
great.
I like it a lot.
Very, very cool. Well guys, if there's any last questions or anything like that, now's a good time. Please know that I will go back, or Jim maybe as well, will go back and look to your comments, because we didn't answer tons of them as we were going, but we will get to your comments and your questions as well. Besides that, another great tour.
I think this has been a lot of fun.
It's awesome. It's
Holy
incredible. You know, I learned a lot today. I really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you joining me. This has been a great event, and I hope that we get to cross paths again in the future. So this is going to be a
No, for sure. That's a given. That's for sure.
the beginning of a wonderful relationship, as they say.
Christina said that I'm supposed to take you for a frosé at a place called the Coop that has flamingos outside. We'll see. I don't know if you can.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, exactly.
All
We'll see. We'll see what happens next.
Beautiful. Good stuff. Well, thanks everybody. Thank you for joining.
Thank you guys. Really appreciate it.
Have a great rest of your week, and stay healthy.
Thanks for joining this pop-up, and we'll see you this weekend with 2 tours out of Japan, a tour out of Prague. I'll probably do a little tour of the East Village of Manhattan myself. That's 4 tours. That's enough.
Der Village.
The village. Exactly. All right, guys. You want to do the honors? You want to press it?
Sure. May I?
Yeah, please.
1,
right up there.
2, and 3.
Oh, almost.
All right.
One more time.
Oh, by the way, the bunny got me on Easter.
Hoppy
Big
Easter.
teeth.
Come on. Almost a little bit higher.
My fingers are
All
not
right,
magic.
I got it.